All right, we've got roster reviews for two teams from Kyle. Let's take a look at this first one. This is your League of Extraordinary Squeezers. Gross. Funny, gross. Okay, 12 team, one quarterback. Start 10, half PPR. Your team is roughly middle of the pack. Uh, I've been saying this in a lot of these videos. Maybe you've seen them, but this value is here. We're going to somewhat ignore it. You're middle of the pack, but really all of these are the same range. And this guy probably has the best lineup, but everything else here is all probably somewhat contending. I mean, we may go into other ones and see that they have extra picks, but we're kind of going to, this numbers here, you're middle of the pack, but don't overthink this too much. Let's go position by position and figure out where your team is at. Quarterbacks. In a one quarterback league, Kyler Murray is probably a 2. He's going to give you QB1 numbers, like top 12 numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if he was as high as QB5, 6. But it's been a couple years since he's been there, but he's just consistently, if he's healthy, a top 10 quarterback. So you're solid there. There's just not a lot of value room to play around with. Same thing with Penix. I wouldn't be surprised if he was QB8, QB9 on the high end. I think that's in his range of outcomes. But in my mind, his ceiling is Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, those kind of guys. CJ Stroud, they're all kind of a blob of pocket passers that are going to fill out QBs 8 through 14. You know, they'll all be the same. Trevor Lawrence in that mix too. Running backs, Hampton, Achane, Kyron Williams. That's for a 12 team, pretty good. I mean, that's 4, 5. Probably 4, because we don't have anyone like Bijan or Genti as a second one, but I've talked a lot about Devon Achane. I think this is half PPR, but he still has a lot of upside in half PPR. He could easily be RB2, RB3. I wouldn't be surprised if he was RB1 in half PPR. Kyron Williams, he might not re-sign with the Rams after this year, but we don't need to worry about that. And then I didn't even mention DeAndre Swift. He's RB28. That's likely just because of age and his situation with Chicago and his contract. It's likely that they move on from him after this year. But every year with Swift, he's a top 24 guy. So you have a lot of starters, good starters in your running backs. Wide receivers, Nico Collins, JSN, George Pickens, Pearsall. You got upside. So I'm going to call this a 3. Like Nico Collins is really good. JSN, we don't need to talk too much about those guys. I feel pretty confident when these say wide receiver 9 and wide receiver 12. Like, yeah, that's about right. George Pickens and Pearsall will probably both take a step forward and outproduce this wide receiver 31 and 33 rankings. And they're both really young. So we're feeling all right about these guys. I'd like to see another good player on here, like a top 24 guy, maybe a Jordan Addison tier guy to feel more confident. But this isn't bad, and there's not a lot of dead weight here, other than maybe Rashid Shaheed. And that's really it. Like, there's just not too much dead weight sitting here. Tight ends. Njoku, Mason Taylor, Darren Waller. We're just kind of hoping here. I'm going to call this 2, a solid 2. David Njoku's probably not a 3, and we're hoping that he doesn't get his role taken over by Harold Fannin in Cleveland. But this is okay. So looking at your team, future value, nothing notable. Well, yeah, you've already moved a 27 first. I guess my thoughts are, with a 12-team start 10, and you've already moved a 27 first, like, I don't see that in this team. I was expecting you to have all your picks based on the rest of your roster. So we're behind a little bit for the future. It's not even next year that we need to worry about that. Is this team contending? I mean, I'm assuming this is 6 teams make the playoffs. Let's just get an idea of like how many are around you. This team probably not too far ahead. Jaden Daniels may take a step back. I'm not super worried about that. I I think you're just in the mix. No, there's no clear far and away best team. Like a lot of this value here isn't going to be touching the starting lineup with big chunk of it in tight ends with no tight end premium. Stroud and Williams are probably a little bit both overvalued. So yeah, you're contending. I just don't feel strongly that I could predict which way your team will go. So moves you can make. This one feels a little bit stuck. If I had this team, I would feel a little stuck with guys like you can't move Achan. You could probably move Kyron. Pivot off Kyron with it's hard to move Pickens. It's hard to move Pearsall because they both have so much upward momentum, not momentum, but like potential. So I would look at like Kyron. If someone was willing to pay you a lot on Hampton, I would consider that because you really only need 2.5 running backs, stud ones, or like one stud one good one, and DeAndre Swift would be fine. So I would consider moving one of those guys. It's Kyler Murray's going to be fine at quarterback for you. We're hoping to see some upside in JSN. I guess what I would look to grab is like Xavier Worthy would be good on this team. He's going to produce pretty well. He's pretty cheap compared to other receivers, and he has a lot of room for upside. Rashee Rice would be good on here if we're moving Kyron Williams. That's probably the direction I would look to go, is moving one of these running backs and getting a cheap young receiver with upside. So that would be like Odunze. I mentioned Rice. There's another guy that I'm blanking out on as I try to think of other guys. Garrett Wilson could probably outproduce his value. And then if you're looking at an older guy, if you moved Kyron and brought back A.J. Brown, he's probably going to produce for a long time. Or Devontae Adams would be a nice cheap option on this team that would make you a more solid contender, or Mike Evans. Really, if you added young guys with upside or cheap veterans that have not shown signs of decline, so that would eliminate guys like Tyreek Hill, where there's plenty of reasons the Dolphins were bad last year, but he also did not look amazing anymore. So there's a signs that he's starting to decline. But Adams, Evans have both looked fine. You could tear down from Williams to Alvin Kamara and pick up picks that you could then use to dip into to upgrade wide receivers. Don't be afraid to move 26 picks with the idea that you're just doing sequences of trades. You could move a first and Kyron to get a great receiver and then tear down from that receiver and get a first back. Stuff like that, where you end up back where you started in terms of picks, but you've moved guys and gotten back better value on the way out. So that's what I would do looking at this team. I'll take a look at your other one, try to squeeze 2 into this video. 12 team, 1 quarterback, start 10. Very similar setup with just a half-point premium. I think you're Kyle in here. I think you changed your team name since submitting it, but you're at the top of this league. Let's go through by positions. Lamar, very good. Bryce Young is a second option, totally fine. This is probably a 4. Running backs, Genty, Henderson, McCaffrey, Swift. Swift in both leagues. 4 or 5. They're both rookies here. A lot of upside in Christian McCaffrey. Nothing is solid for sure. Wide receivers, Drake London, Zay Flowers, Olave, Ayuk. A little bit weak on wide receivers in this team too. A lot of upside in London. Zay Flowers, I feel like he's capped out where he is. I don't know that he's really ever going to be better than, I think he's normally about 12 points per game in PPR, and this is PPR. He's not very consistent when he's scoring. There are some games that they just don't really use him. I think his value has somewhat hit his ceiling. So if someone is going to give you a first and a second for Zay Flowers, I would do that and then just use that first and a second to buy a better player combined with other guys. Olave, Ayuk, Shakir. This is probably a really strong 2 here. You got enough depth to fill out a lineup, but nothing. Wide receivers aren't going to win you your league. Tight ends, Njoku. Were you Njoku on your other one too? Yeah. I'm not going to restate how I feel about him. Can we make a good starting lineup here? I mean, you're at the top of the pecking order. We're going Lamar, Genty, Henderson, McCaffrey's probably starting week in, week out for you. Drake London, Zay Flowers, Olave, Njoku, and then Ayuk, Shakir, Diggs. If you're already at the top, I wouldn't be afraid to move those picks and just fill in more starting guys. I mentioned veterans in when talking about your other team. That's probably what I would be looking for here, and just try to lock up championship and money slots. There's not as much to say on this team, and we're already one of the longer review videos, so I'll wrap this one up here. If you have any questions or follow-up deals that you make, or anything else that is unclear in what I said, let me know in the comment section, and I usually respond within the day.